Welcome to Family Hour here on the YAHOWAH blog. We've got our whole contingent back today up there in the top here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We have Kevin. How are you this fine day?
Doing well. Beautiful day
Last
outside.
time I talked with you, it was Sunday, and we were doing blog on the vlog. I hope we can do another one this coming Sunday. There's so much out in the news to talk about. And you said it was a balmy 70 some odd degrees there in Missouri.
Yes, it was. We had a good 3 days, and then it was 19.
Oh, ouch. That's not good. I hate it when it goes up and down like that. You can't get used to one or the other, but it gets to be much after a while. Okay, excuse me, Wookie, you want to come up? Okay. Whoa, wow, look at the Wook. Oh, I think what he wants is my cappuccino. Then we Dr. Jeff. You're at home. You're not in the ER today, which means this is going to be a little easier environment for you. You're wearing your Shannon shirt, too.
Absolutely.
It says YAHOWAH, but it's a Shannon shirt. Shannon may have to, go and update his shirts now that we have a new ancient Hebrew font. We have a Torah font. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to check that out, but we are now replete with it. You have, haven't you, Captain Kirk?
Yes, sir. Very nice.
And you know that it's actually on the site itself. We've got a couple of tweaks still to do on it. The Roche is still a bit too fussy, trying to convey the idea of eyes to see and ears to hear in a human head. So we're going to try to defussy it just a touch, so it's a little more like a letter. But what we used was primarily that lead tablet from the Exodus. So it dates back to the 14th century BCE. It was right at the conclusion of the Exodus, and it had so many of the letters, and some of these letters were presented very differently than what we had seen in the old text that we had been using. And so we just tried to update it for that purpose. And the old text was not professionally created, which means that the heights of the letters, the widths of the letters were wildly inconsistent. The spacing between letters was wildly inconsistent. Just a whole lot of things that made it exceedingly difficult to use. If you used a space bar, you'd go halfway across the page. And so every time I would use it, I would be presenting one letter in an 8 point and the next letter in 14 point. So they would work well together. So they were just in completely different styles. So we spent a couple of weeks studying everything we could find in terms of old scripts. There actually is an Egyptian script that's very similar to it. There's a Phoenician script that's quite similar, a Moabite script that's similar, and of course old traces of a Hebrew script, all the same alphabet, obviously, same 22 letters, all drawn remarkably similar. So we just tried to update them for what we had seen. So did we get a thumbs up from our artist?
Well, I think so. Yes, that's really nice.
Okay. Yeah, it's a nice step forward. And JB, we now know that you're never going to miss a show again.
No.
Yeah, there he is. So you've gone to a place without snow up there on the moon, beating the Artemis mission later this month. That was a good sign. For those that don't know, JB and family took a road trip up the interstate from Texas to Minnesota. And coming back in Iowa, they hit a blizzard of all blizzards and decided that they would park their car in a ditch on the side of the interstate. And there it stayed.
On the side of a middle of nowhere road.
Oh, really? Even worse. Okay. Stayed there for a while and had to be fixed so that it would all work for you when you got it back. So we're glad to have you.
They shut down the interstate.
Yeah. Oh my. Yes. And that's amazing that we can get that much snow. We have snowplow and other issues here too from time to time, although those times are fairly well dispersed. Since I think the all-time low that I've experienced in the 8 years we've been here is 70. So it doesn't typically snow much here.
So I got a little weather shock. I went from where we left Iowa, it was 9 degrees, to now here in Texas, we're sitting around 72 right now.
Wow. Well, don't worry, it'll fall again. We're not. You're not out of winter yet. So yeah,
Texas out temperatures like Powerball numbers.
Yeah, they are bouncing all around, all over the place. We'll have Leah back here in a moment. I knew she was here for a second. She's probably dealing with the Cara, who's a little less attentive on these kinds of shows than my pal here, Wookie. One of the program notes that I wanted to talk about is that Leah and Joe, and to some extent I, have been very active on trying to update the website, YadaYah.com. And what you'll find is that every book now has been redone. Every book is now available in its new format at Amazon. So every single book is available in the new. Pardon?
On the covers.
Yeah, all new covers, all new illustrations, and significant upgrades throughout the book in terms of the way they're presented. So I want to thank Joe for that. That was an enormous effort to get that done. And then he has returned to the website. We did this font that we've been talking about, but there's also now, if you go to the website at the top of the page, there's a timeline. And so the first 3 iterations of the timeline are already there. There'll be a more detailed timeline that doesn't have all the pretty graphics also added to it. And then there's going to be actually put on the homepage 4 epochs of time, where we highlight between 5 and 10 major events during the epoch of time. And we're going to do a vlog on them, so that click on that one and we will talk to you about what that means, past or future. So there'll be a very active timeline in that regard. There's also a countdown timer for Taruw'ah in the beginning of Israel's troubles. So that's quite nice. We're going to augment our homepage with that. We're going to add also some of these really beautiful branding things that have, and promotional materials that have come out in the last month, which have been really so well designed. So we're going to have many of those featured on the homepage, and then we're going to have a whole section for these songs, which may be the single best way to communicate Yahweh's message, with the visuals, the lyrics, and the music. So these are all things that are going to happen. We have Perry working on a database with all of the translations by passage number, as well as on a database for the glossary. And he and Joe are, are working to get that properly formatted and up on the site as well. So lots of progress on the YadaYah.com website. All of these books, 35 of them, are presented in their entirety and free, as well as access to royalty-free books at Amazon if you prefer your book like Kirk does, and paper. That's the way. Absolutely, Wookie.
How much that book cost?
This book is probably $12, something of that nature. You know, they run from $12 probably upwards to 16, 17, 18 bucks, which for, book that is 825 pages and a scholastic that's 825 pages. You went to medical school, Dr. Jeff. What would you pay for an 825 page technical book on a subject that's important to you?
Probably $400 to $600 at least.
Yeah. Wow. So under $20 would be considered a value by comparison.
Would be a steal.
Yeah.
Craig, did Leah, Joe, and Perry also, along with the glossary, design an index?
That's what we're talking about. There is I don't know if we're going to use the term index, but we will come up with a proper designation for it. Leah likes the word Torah addresses, but all of the passages that I have translated, that's what I was just mentioning, all those pages that things that I've translated, Perry has put together a database, and Joe has figured out how to represent them, maintaining the proper formatting such that it will be available going forward as well. So we'll have all of these tools added to the website shortly. And for those that want to know, they're at the YadaYah.com website, to know Yah website. There is no snooping. We have no idea who you are. Anybody can come. They can stay as long as they want. We don't know where you're coming from or where you're going to. We're not paying any attention to any of that. We're not trying to collect data on anyone. There is no donate to us button. We do not collect money from anybody for any reason under any circumstances, nor do we ever solicit anything from you. The books are entirely free, not just parts of them, but all of them are entirely free. So it's a very pleasant experience. It's very interactive. Probably the only website now that blends a full library of 35 books that we have written based upon translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls, very unique amplified translations. I wonder if that's Cappuccino there is going to stunt Wookiee's growth, but he's really going after it here. We don't feed our dog. We just give him cappuccinos at morning and the evening, and that's pretty much it, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. So that's very unique for a website to have a site of a translator, author, commentator that has 35 books, many of them upwards over 800 pages long, all presented free. But we also have a full blog on the website. So we take from posts on X and on Facebook and present them such that you don't have to go to Facebook or X to participate. And the presentation of information. A blog is where you have a picture, and copy a blog is where you do it through video. We make that experience available to you on the website, where you don't even have to leave the website to enjoy it. Then we have links to the 4,000 different social media pages, channels, and accounts that we're presenting information. It may be a couple of less than 4,000, but it seems that way sometimes. I used to be able to look at our Facebook post of a show, like our blog on the vlog, which is now upwards of 1,000 views on the Facebook site. And then you realize, well, we actually have 3 Facebook sites, and we have 5 YouTube channels. And most everyone that participates in a show like this on the chat room is in the chat room of one of the Facebook channels. And then we have Rumble and Patreon and TikTok and Instagram and X, and we're live streaming in most of those places and presenting the presentation at all of them. So you lose track of actually how many tens of thousands of hours and views that we have. But one of the new things about these sites now is that while we will never be high in subscriptions because we oppose Christianity and Islam and Judaism, while opposing anti-Semitism and all forms of politics, from Marxists to MAGAs, and all conspiratorialists as well. You're just not going to have a big audience when you oppose the things that people congregate around on X or on Facebook. But what we do have is exceedingly high viewership in the terms of
Watch hours.
thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of people benefiting from and learning from these programs that we are producing and offering. So that part of it is really quite positive and extraordinary. And you can see, there's Cara now making her debut here in the show next to Leah. All right.
I'll just say, Craig and
Yes.
Leah and guys, what's extraordinary is that this is the only website in the history of humanity that offers the gift, and I say gift, of eternal life.
It does. The gift of eternal life. It is the only place. This is the unique thing. What we did, I just, by the way, showed how effective Wookiee has been on my cappuccino. I think he did leave 3 drops at the bottom. He's going to try to resolve that problem right now.
Would you like another cappuccino, darling?
It's a time for a refill.
Yeah, maybe a double cappuccino espresso. Maybe a double espresso.
That
cappuccino.
was a double.
Yeah,
That was a double.
Oh, that was a double. Well,
that was a double.
Well, you're going to see Wookiee bouncing off the walls to see.
Did you let him drink that whole thing?
He did.
Oh my God, no.
He did.
Wow.
No question about it. All right. So with that introduction, I want to direct our attention back to 2 things. First, what you just said, Dr. Jeff, is valid. Well, we do not have an audience for what we have to say, because we're not going to change what we have to say for anyone. And we speak for God. His name is Yahweh. He has upwards of 1,000 prophetic references to specifically what we are doing on his behalf. And he's all in on this, chosen us and equipped us for this role. This role is, we're not talking about this because there's any power or money or prestige or my wife's laughing here. Yeah, we can just in this phase two.
We work 85, 95 hours a week.
Just in this phase two, the vlog, we've now spent upwards of $150,000, and we work between 80 and 85 hours a week for free to do this. So it's not exactly.
We take a lot of guff.
We're not motivated as other people are, but what we do have is we have the first ever amplified translation that where every word is verifiable, where you can challenge every word that I have written, because I give you the Hebrew basis of that word, or if we're in the New Testament, I give you the Greek basis. And where I strip all of the religiosity out of every term. I pull in the case of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, the Masoretic diacritical markings, which were highly misleading. Where I go back to the roots of each word, consider their actionable roots so that we can define the words correctly. Study the first use of every word. Look at all related words to ascertain the full meaning of any term, and then actually study the moods, the stems, the conjugations, such that we're able to present the text in the manner that God intended, full, complete, amplified, and verifiable. It's never existed previously. It's the first time anyone has ever done this. And we bring it up on the screen all the time during our shows so you get to see what amplified translations look like. And it's the only place these exist in the world. I literally invented the process to do it, and I've been doing it now for just a short while, 4 years. With that same kind of dedication. And on top of that, we offer the most comprehensive commentary on what God said and analysis, and provide upwards of 10,000 previously unheralded insights. So within these books, this is Shauna and that series. Yeah, Wookiee looks up to it. In these books, not only is there copious amounts of translation and insights that can be derived from them, but we also have some, as I say, 10,000 unheralded insights, things that people have never considered previously, never even thought about. And some of those insights are revolutionary. I would say that there are some among them which are not only previously undiscussed, but that could rate as the greatest discoveries in human history. If you have any interest of living past your mortal existence or knowing God or entering heaven, there's nothing that compares to them. And we offer them all for free, but some of these are, we reintroduced Yahweh's name, the proper pronunciation of it, and proved it. We were able to be the first that could effectively disprove Islam, demonstrating that Allah is not a god and that Muhammad was not a prophet. And I have 825 page books based entirely on the Islamic sources, using the Islamic sources themselves to disprove Islam. It's groundbreaking material. And I did the same thing with 5 volumes on Christianity, disproving the Christian New Testament and that no, Jesus Christ never existed. No one's ever done that before. And in addition to that, I have disproven Judaism and shown that there are whole books and what's called the Old Testament that just don't belong, like Ezekiel. But I didn't just dismiss it. I translated every word of it because it is exceedingly insightful. It's just not inspired by God. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't inspired. And the fact is, it was inspired by Satan. And he says a lot about himself in that book and what he's going to achieve, including telling us who he's going to work with in these days leading to Doe's return. And that is the Coppercon, Donald Trump. And so there's an enormous amount of that kind of material. But then the most important thing is this realization that the whole human experience from God's perspective centers around a singular man. Doe David. He's it. God is all in. The 89th Mizmowr is so effective in making this point, where God says absolutely and unequivocally that there is only one person that matters, that one person is the exemplar of the covenant, one person enabled the benefits of the covenant. Without the covenant, there is no eternal life. There is no salvation. There is no adoption into God's family. There's no inheritance. There's no enrichment. There's no empowerment. None of that's even possible. So you have this realization that Dode is the beginning and the end of all, that he is the Messiah, not Jesus. He is the Son of God, not Jesus. That he is the chosen one, not Jesus. And that he was the one who was crucified in 33 CE, year 4000 Yah, becoming our Savior by fulfilling Pesach and Matzah. He is the one whose soul went into Sheol, hell, to remove our guilt, not Jesus. And that recognition as to proving how he figured out he should do this, why he chose to do it, how he convinced God that it was the appropriate thing to do, and how the mechanics worked to enable that process so that gift could be delivered to us, and how it's directly related to the 5 benefits of the covenant and enabled through the Moed Mikre on God's schedule. That's extraordinary. That in a normal, enlightened, inquisitive, open-minded world, that'd be the front page of every newspaper for months on end. Absolutely. The single most important discussion in humanity. It'd be nothing that would even compare to it, because it proves conclusively that Jesus never existed and that Christianity is a fraud from beginning to end. It proves conclusively that there's no basis for rabbinic Judaism. It proves conclusively that Islam is a lie. So you have these 3 horrible religions that are completely disproven by that realization. And somebody who has put together all of the evidence and delivering it in 25,000 pages of proof. And you read it and you will know who God is, what he's offering, what he's expecting in return, and how to avail yourself of eternal life. So that is...
I say, Craig, that, just what comes to mind is that what you've done, I'm going to give you the quarter century, bro, is the epitome of the word chazak, and truly incorporate what it means to be a Gabor in the process, starting from Islam to today. Yeah, it's just
Gabor and Shazak are the principal ingredients, in addition, of course, to what God would call chakma, bien, yada, dayath, etza. All of these things are required, but what he's speaking of is that when you have a message that's this profoundly important, and yet this completely irreconcilable with the religions of 80% of the people who live on the planet, and you're going to deliver that in live stream programs like we do, or make all of your writings on it available, what you're going to find is that 99% of the world is either going to despise you or ignore you. And to be ignored when you have the single greatest gift ever offered, that's tough. And being despised, it's not a lot of fun.
No.
And so you better have chakma, which chakma means strong, resilient, tremendous conviction, courage. Chokmah's tough as nails. That's why God chose the demeanor of a bull for this role. And Gabora is a similar term. The nature of Gabora is slightly different in that Yahweh himself is Chokmah, unrelenting. But Yahweh doesn't ever use Gabor to describe himself, because Gabor is, in its root, its actionable root would be from Gabar, which speaks of a strong man. And so the most Gabor of men would be Dod, but he is not alone in Gabor, which is courage, character, confidence, capability. All of these things are part of Gabor, and it's an essential part of this job. You can't be meek. You can't be timid. You can't be humble and do this job. You have to have a total and complete confidence in the role. So it is a unique place that we come from, and we have written a series here just recently. The last series to publish is this called Time of Trouble. It's also 825 pages. I wonder why so many books are that length. That's the maximum length book that Amazon, which now has about 99% of the publishing business, that's the longest book that they will publish, and it's 825 pages. So I've just learned when you reach that point, it's time to move on to the next book. So kind of how we write. But that book will tell you everything that's going to happen tomorrow. It's a book on future history. It's tomorrow's newspaper delivered yesterday. So if you want to know exactly what's going to happen, from economic collapse to world war, to who is the Antichrist, to when did the time of trouble begin? Is Israel going to be required to forfeit a Palestinian state? What's that going to cost Israel should it happen? What day would it occur on? When does the corporeal manifestation of Satan arrive in Israel? What's he going to say? Who are the two witnesses? When are they going to arrive? And how the remaining 4 Moed Mikre are fulfilled, when they are fulfilled, who will participate in them, including the upcoming harvest, Shabu'ah and Taruw'ah. All of it's laid out in that book. It tells you everything that you need to know about participating in these events. So it's a lot to offer.
Can I add a quickie?
No, just kidding. Just kidding. I have to give Kirk a hard time just because Kirk's going through a difficult period at the time. And there is nobody on earth that has a better disposition about going through a tough time than Kirk. So absolutely, Kirk. By the way, I noticed that you know, with all of this, you still got plenty of facial hair. I mean, I think you may have lost the 3 on the top of the head.
Radiation doesn't really destroy your hair. They said I'd probably keep all my hair. You could lose some, but it's not because.
Oh, okay.
So the between the medicines they're using and the radiation, it's staggering enough. But if I do, it's all gray hair. So hopefully it'll come.
Okay. You know, and one of the things they make you do is you have to take testosterone blocking medications. And when you realize how much strength, really, energy that gives a man, that's a tough thing that's a tough thing to be without, isn't it?
Oh, even for a woman.
That's the biggest problem. For anybody, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, women also have it.
Yeah.
In fact, alpha women are typically tested very high for it.
Mm-hmm. The one, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to add is about a little less than 2 decades ago when I ran across you. I'm not an uneducated person, but I'm not a scholar. And when we picked up the first book of YadaYahowah and I started to read it, we printed it out at the time, or my wife did at the time. It may say, don't be intimidated. It may be 800 pages, but it reads extremely well. I mean, it's easy. It's an easy read to me. It's bold print, always was, as far as I remember. You would you'd have all the words in parentheses, so you could go on to any number of sites, or you could go to any of the books like the ones I have down here, or the site that I have on right now on what we're covering. And you can look up anything that you said and figure out why you said it that way. It's nice to have a chart of some kind, you know, where you have all your grammar, if that's it. But interlinear will tell you that. And then on top of that, if you, the commentary draws it all together, and then you go back and forth and you say, oh, okay, I get it. It should not intimidate you because it's big. This is a big story.
It is a big story, and it's a cohesive story. And there are aspects of the Hebrew language that are really unique, but if you spend some time in it, you get really comfortable with it. You know, one of the uniquenesses about the language that we're dealing with is that in Hebrew, verbs are not stuck in time. That's very unique. So a verb is never written in the past, present, or future tense. The action either is ongoing or it is finite in its time. And there are basically 4 conjugations: the perfect, the imperfect. There is the participle and the infinitive. And each of those presents the action in a little different way, with the infinitive and the participle actually creating a blend between a verb or a noun. We're going to see a lot of that in this text that I'm going to be sharing with you today, where God's conveying something that is equal parts action and identity. Yeah, what a marvelous language in that regard. And you can see what behaviors he's describing as habitual and ongoing, and what he said, well, it's going to be one and done. So if you're going to take advantage, you need to get with the program. And the implications of that are significant. And it is a language whereby, without verbs being stuck in time, the verbs are essentially like light in Hebrew. On a photon of light, time simply is. There is no past, present, or future on a photon of light. Time simply exists. And therefore, you can witness the past, present, and future if you are energy-based. That's how Yahweh does prophecy. He's not predicting the future. He has witnessed our future and then gone to our past to reveal it, so that when it happens, we could trust his testimony and that we would not be surprised for what's going to happen. So that is a very unique part of Hebrew that ties it into the very nature of God, where he exists as an energy-based being, therefore is infinite in that regard and can move forward and back in time. The next thing that's really interesting is that Hebrew actually has 3 volitional moods. You know, it's not only that you can convey volition, but you can convey volition in first, second, and third person. And the master of this happens to be Dode. The reason I came to realize that Dode had volunteered and that Yahweh had accepted his desire to serve as the Passover lamb in his second of 3 lives, and then to take our guilt into Sheol, hell, on Matzah, is because he wrote what he was saying in the imperative and the cohortative. That's second person and first person expressions of volition. And he would scribe the same verb with both moods, which would be to say, I want and you agree, or it's your will and I concur. What a marvelous way to be able to communicate information, but yet no one ever pays any attention to them. I decided to. And when I did, the floodgates of insights were suddenly opened. And then in Hebrew, there are stems. Like the nifl stem says that the subject both carries out the action of the verb and is affected by it. So that would be to say, I'm the one who produced these translations, and by having done so, I gain the most from them. A nifl stem. The
7 stems.
Yeah, and the hifl stem would tell you, for example, that the subject, which very often is God, causes the object to be a secondary subject. In other words, he's able to work through someone to accomplish what he wants done. A marvelous stem. The nifl would have the subject causing this action to occur. The call would just say, this is a literal interpretation of these things. Then you have the hit pail and the hofel, and wow, they go into very exotic thoughts, of something occurring that where you were absolutely compelled and forced to do what happened, or something occurring where you were not influenced by anyone. This was all on your own initiative, and there was no outside influence of any kind to create that scenario. And so these stems are always depicting the relationship between the subject and the object of a verb, and a language that was specifically designed to convey the kind of relationship that Yahweh wanted with humankind.
Amazing.
Isn't that, I mean, it's marvelous kinds of things. And then in Hebrew, you have masculine and feminine nouns. Every noun is either masculine or feminine. And this helps you identify what the subject or the object of a sentence is because of that. And sometimes they're used to convey more information than would be otherwise gleanable from the term itself, or to expand the information in the term. And the pronouns and the prepositions as well, even the articles and conjunctions are ascribed to the verb and to the other nouns and other terms, such that you have kind of a phrase that you unravel as to, is this first, second, or third person, masculine, singular, masculine or feminine, singular or plural, and how is the action being played out? And I don't provide a grammar lesson with all of these. I'm hardly a grammarian. I'm a former businessman. So that's my approach to things: is let's be orderly, let's be functional, let's be productive, let's get this done. We have a job to do, and we're going to have a system for marshaling down the road and getting this done. That's going to be consistent and effective. That's the nature of a businessman. But occasionally we'll go into the grammar when it is essential to understanding what's being conveyed. And we're going to have some things here where God used the grammar to tell us that there's only one group of people in all of history and all of the world today that could be the subject of his rebuke. And so without the grammar, you're going to leave a lot on the table. And JB, I know you did a lot of translation. When you start at it, you have a tendency to, maybe to look at an interlinear and say, all right, that means this, that's kind of it. So you look at the word and say, all right, that's an acceptable rendering, and you kind of go with it. And then the more and more you do it, the more you said, no, it's not really what it says. I don't know why they got she or he or they or them or that rendering, but singular, because it's not there. This is what it really says, and we need to figure out how to make what it really says work in this sentence.
Yep.
Then it becomes a real challenge.
And that's really where the grammar does come in, because you'll see so many things in the translation, your basic English translation says this, but then you're like, well, how do you even get there from here? And so if you translate it like that, it makes no sense. And then you're like, oh, well, there's this stem, there's this mood. Okay, now I can see how to piece this together. But just looking at the words directly, some of the sentences almost don't make sense.
Correct.
Until you take that into account.
Yes. And then, of course, just one other thought as we go on here. We have the challenge of the deteriorating human intelligence, which right now is on a cascading and avalanche course to oblivion. It's one of the reasons there's two reasons I'm so concerned about AI, is that people are already not thinking. And we have two generations that don't know how to think anymore. You can't reason with them because they know nothing about logic and the rules of evidence, for example, and the rules of reason and logic and rhetoric. But AI is now becoming the ultimate crutch, and people are just not thinking. And AI is not intelligent. It's not judgmental. It's strictly putting the finger up in the air and saying, well, most people have said this on Reddit or on Wikipedia, so that's my answer. It's really pathetic. And the second thing is that AI and machines are going to pull people out of the process of doing stuff. And when people stop engaging and working, like what's happened to, we have now a whole generation that doesn't know how to work. Trump wants to bring factories back, jobs back to America. You got no one to work them. There's no one, literally.
You're lucky to get a crew to show up on time.
Yeah, all the young generation knows is how to be an influencer, and that is useless. So with robots and AI, you're going to put people out of work, and that is how we create value. That's how we develop worth, is to build and create things, and we stop doing that. It's going to be really bleak for humanity. And so what I was trying to drive at with this the degradation of intelligence is that if you look at a book from the 17th or 18th century, for the most part, a sentence is as long as a paragraph in today's books. And a paragraph was a page or 2 pages. So that the things that were related were kept related.
Early 19th century, they were still writing books like that.
And now if you were to do that, you would have 0 readers. No one could follow what you're doing.
Nope.
I happen to love long sentences because you can tie so many clauses together and make it so much more interesting. But what I learned is you can't do that anymore. So you're holding up an old book there. The reality today is
in the 1800s English grammar I got from my grandfather. This when you read the first few sentences and all, you go, bye.
Yeah, bye.
How far we have fallen.
Oh, how far we have fallen. And so when you're trying to write the message of the most brilliant individual in the history of the universe, the man who, not man, but God who created the universe, you want to dumb it down at least to the point that the reader can understand it, and yet you're afraid to dumb it down because that's an insult to the inspiration behind it. But it's a constant struggle. You learn to break sentences down into shorter ones and only put a longer one in if it's surrounded by short ones, and break paragraphs such that they're never more than 3 or 4 sentences. Otherwise, you'd lose everybody. So it's a real art to get this done. Yep, indeed.
You don't want to dumb it down too much because then you break the filter.
That's correct. You break the filter
to get through this.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, JB's point there is something that if you're part of the covenant family, you're going to understand. If you're not, you won't. Because the religious have this notion that God wants to save everyone.
Ew.
And they want it simple, like in Christianity, it's the gospel of grace. And Islam is it's the tirade of jihad. Really simple. You can please Allah if you go off and kill people, and you can be part of the man God's heaven if you believe the gospel of grace. Not God's style. God doesn't want to save everyone. In fact, he is specific that he wants to save very few. He actually wrote the second statement that he etched in stone, which is a complete repudiation of all things associated with religion, by saying that it's going to be thousands who receive the benefits of the covenant relationship, and thousands amongst billions would in fact be 1 in a million. So that's the kind of numbers we're going to be dealing with, is in the range of 1 in a million people. So God is trying to create a filter, not to determine who to include, but to make certain that no one is included who should be excluded. And we're going to get more into that here in a moment. God comes across far more as an introvert than an extrovert. I think he would have been happy with the Dode alone. But he and Dode worked out an arrangement where there are going to be a considerable number of us that move on in life, but that it's not God's style to have too many. All right, so I want to return to where we are going to pick up this story. I had done a series, was in the midst of a series called Return to the Garden. The reason that series is named Return to the Garden is because we were taken out of the garden at God's choice. God calls the fall of man. He's very clear about that in the testimony found in Barbara Schuth's Genesis. So he caused the fall of man because frankly, Adam didn't measure up. Adam was not trustworthy. He did not listen. He did not engage and make a contribution. He was not responsible, and God couldn't trust him. And so there was no way that God could have a relationship with Adam outside of the garden where things were dangerous. And there was no way that Adam was going to grow up and become anything that would be interesting for God to spend time with if he was left sheltered in that garden. So God simply gave up on the experiment and caused the fall of man. And the message there is, if we think about what God said about those two in the garden and why he caused the fall of man, what he said he was specifically wanted, and we look and say, Adam didn't provide any of those four things. And then we look at what God's edict was to them after they ignored his testimony. We can very quickly deduce something that no one's ever thought of until we did so on these programs, which is that the reason there's been 6,000 years from the fall of man out of the garden to our ability to stand again is because God has given us this opportunity to get it right, to listen to him, to act upon what he is saying, to show that we are observant and therefore would be interesting explorers out there in the rest of the universe, and that we can be trusted and that we have character, because when we stumble and fall, we can get back up. And that is exactly what God wants. And he is not letting anyone off of this planet to explore the universe with him until such time as we demonstrate that, because it's dangerous out there. This is a protective enclosure here on the earth. Off the earth, it's really, really dangerous out there. And yet there's every bit of 2 trillion and maybe more galaxies, and every bit of 100 to 200 billion stars per galaxy. There's a lot to see out there. And that's just the 5% that we know about, not the 95% that we haven't even figured out yet. So God wants us to be good listeners, to be responsive, to contribute to the relationship, be willing to work in that regard, and to be reliable and trustworthy, and not be perfect, because that would be boring as hell, but to, when we stumble and fall, to get back up and to show that we're resilient in this regard. That's what God's looking for. And so I've been presenting the return to the garden, because what God is doing is he told us the story of the garden because he's bringing us back there. And by us, not a lot of us. There is be a mortal remnant of Yehudim and of Goyim that are brought back into Jerusalem on Taruw'ah, September 24th of 2033, year 6000 Yah. And they will have the opportunity to re-enter the garden on Sukkah, which is synonymous with the Gan Eden. And they will be able to be there for 1,000 years. And during that 1,000 years, it's those who are harvested, and we're going to talk about these harvests, on Taruw'ah and on primarily on Shavuot, the next harvest, that are going to be the ones teaching them, because they are going to have to show God that they can be trusted, that they're good listeners, that they're observant, that they're reliable. And our job will be over that 1,000 years to prepare whatever number of people choose to participate, that they have the opportunity to be emancipated from this planet and have their physical bodies transformed into light energy, and to be able to explore the universe with Yahweh. Pretty cool. So that is what is being presented. That is what we're offering. And it's a profoundly important insight. So we went to Yashayah, which is Isaiah. It means Yahweh saves, Yahweh delivers. 17. And the reason we went there is it does a marvelous job of putting in the context of time, and it identifies also the participants who are going to engage in the Shavuot harvest and what else is going to transpire around it, and then in the Taruw'ah gleaning, and with the sacrifice thereafter of the Adam of Parah, the bloody red man of the earth who is a productive bull, and where all that leads and when it will transpire. And what we learned is that the beginning of the time of Israel's troubles and the time we're pushing towards here is just 5 months away now. It's Shavuot, 22 May of 2026. The harvest will either be then or the following Shabu'ah, which would be 11 June of 2027. It's ambiguous, and both could be possible. It has to be a Shabu'ah, so it's only those 2 dates. So it's not like we have a whole laundry list. It's either one of the two, with one event happening and one of them and another event happening on the other. And God wants it that way because, quite frankly, the more time we have, the better. But we have to be planning as we don't have much time. There's a lot to accomplish. We need to be with it and get this done so that we leave the proper legacy behind. And then Taruw'ah and the fulfillment of Taruw'ah, Kippurim, and Sukkah are date certain. 23rd and 24th of September 2033, backdrop of a full solar eclipse. For Taruw'ah, Yom Kippurim, when Dode returns as Messiah and King, with YAHOWAH is the 2nd of October 2033, and then 5 days thereafter is when we celebrate Sukkah and we're returned to the garden with this mortal remnant of Israel and of Goyim as well. Those dates are set in stone. So that's what we're presenting here. Now, what I wanted to do, since the Torah speaks of these as harvests, Shabu'ah is of standing grain, and Taruw'ah is of olives. So what I wanted to prove is that we're not talking about going out into the field and taking our sickle and cutting down some grain, wheat. Yeah, it's 2 types of wheat for Shabu'ah, which is why it's 2 loaves of bread, the celebration of it. And we aren't going to be whacking away at an olive tree for a gleaning on Taruw'ah. Not olives. Olives symbolically of Yisrael, and the wheat symbolically of both Yisrael and Goyim. So the best way to do that is to turn to Isaiah 57, which tells us that as part of the Asaph, these ingatherings, people are going to disappear. And so it says that the ingatherings are of people and that they literally disappear. And that the rest who remain are not going to know where they're gone. That's in Isaiah 57. So that being the case, it closes the thought process on what's going to happen. So I thought, well, let's go there next and deal with that. But one of the things I have learned doing this now 24 years is you never start at a specific thing that you're looking to understand, or you won't understand it. Always the case. This idea you're going to do what Paul did and you're going to pluck a verb out of, or a verse out of context and truncate it and misrepresent it. And by the time you're done, you've conveyed the opposite of what God actually said. And you know nothing and you're just misleading people. You don't do that with YAHOWAH. YAHOWAH is very contextual. And so the only way to actually understand Isaiah 57 is to read what God spoke in first person in Isaiah 56. And when you do, what you find out is a lot more than what we have just suggested here. So we're going to begin that now. And these previous programs, we are now absolutely assured of the timeline and the prophetic implications of the Shabu'ah and the Taruw'ah harvest. So we're going to work towards a comprehensive affirmation that these ingatherings of covenant members are not grain and they're not olives. They're serving as metaphors. And for these insights, of course, we're going to turn to Yeshaya, Isaiah 56 and 57. All right, so that discussion begins. And I think each of you have had a chance to read this so you know where we're going, and it's riveting. For this is what YAHOWAH says. You should choose to be observant, carefully considering and closely examining the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes, making good decisions. Misvad. The opening line there is consistent with exactly where Adam failed in the garden. God said there's 2 things that he wanted from Adam in the garden before he even put a conscience and the Salma in a person such that he could relate to God and bring him into the garden. And those two things were, I want him to work, to make a contribution, because work creates character and value. And I want him to be observant, because if he's not observant, what's the point of anything? Because my entire intent is to take humanity off this planet and to go explore the universe and life and everything else that's going to be in this universe. And so this begins with Shamar, to be observant. So that's a pretty good start. So God's consistent the way he presents his story. And the thing that now he is asking us to observe are not the trees, at least not at this point. It's the mishpat. And mishpat's a exceedingly simple Hebrew word to analyze. You guys know the basis of mishpat and how you would render it accurately? It's a compound word.
Pot, judge. So yeah,
Right.
have some judge recognition and me to question that judgment.
Correct.
To think
So-
about, yeah.
Yeah, to ponder the implications or to ask important questions regarding exercising good judgment, making good decisions. Shafat is to judge, to discern, to discriminate, to make sound and reasoned decisions. So God says, I want you to be particularly observant, carefully considering and closely considering the means to exercise good judgment. Why? Because the path to God is up here. You have to think your way through him. God presents himself to us cerebrally so that we can think our way to him. And the only way you can do that is to exercise good judgment. And you can't exercise good judgment unless you've been observant, because you wouldn't even know what you're supposed to discern, right? So you have to start by being observant, and then you can deduce between right and wrong. Yeah, that's the order that it has to proceed. Then it says, then
Jesus was wrong when he said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged."
there is probably nothing other than the Sermon on the Mount and the Olivet Discourse that's right in the Christian New Testament. And the only reason that the Sermon on the Mount and the Olivet Discourse are right is they were actually recorded by the Ibanim, who were Hebrews that knew that it was Dode that was fulfilling these things. And they wrote what he had to say down in the Hebrew language and passed it on. And whoever the fraud was that wrote the plagiarized book of Matthew plagiarized from three sources. 70% of 80% of the book comes from Mark and Luke, and the 20 to 25% that didn't come from Mark and Luke came from the Ibanim, and the Ibanim contributed the Sermon on the Mount and the Olivet Discourse. But God absolutely did not say, "Judge not lest you be judged," because God's whole concept is, if you're going to understand who I am, what I'm offering, and what you need to do in return, you've got to be judgmental. God's very, very keen on exercising good judgment. Matter of fact, when he brought his people into the land, he establishes Shaphat for their guidance. And what is a Shaphat?
The judge.
Judge.
Yeah.
I tell people, being judgmental is the same as having hatred. You have to be able to hate in order to love, but by what standard you hate is the same thing with being judgmental. By what standard are you judging? Being judgmental by the wrong standard is negative, but being judgmental by the proper standard is necessary.
Yeah. Exercising good judgment is necessary if you want to be moral, just, fair, intelligent, rational. There is no way to be any of those things without exercising good judgment. So being judgmental is the essence to being right, to being discerning, to being discriminating. It's the thing that that the artificial intelligence cannot do. And it's this very aspect of our nasama, our conscience, that enables humans, when they exercise it correctly, to be judgmental. And it's the very essence of being right. You cannot be right, and you cannot distinguish what is wrong if you are not judgmental. So it goes on to say, then choose to engage so that you act upon. So what was the other thing that Adam was asked to do? To make a contribution, to act, to engage, right?
Mhm.
What's the
Do something.
Yeah, do something. That's what this says. Do something. So once you become observant and you pondered the means to exercise good judgment, then do something. Act upon it. If you're not willing to act upon it, you are never going to be in God's company, ever. God is not lazy. He is not looking for dependence. If you are a progressive and you like the entitlements, everybody should get free health care, everybody should get a living wage, everybody should be a huge societal safety net, all that kind of stuff. God's not a proponent of that. God is a proponent of you need personal responsibility. Yes, I want you to be observant. Yes, I want you to be thoughtful, but I also want you to engage. You need to work. If you don't work, you're a deadbeat and you're of no interest or value to anybody, including me. So that is why we make a contribution. That's what God once modeled. Then choose to engage so that you act upon that which is correct and vindicating. One of the most important of all Hebrew words, sadak. And here it's in the feminine form, sadaka, which would incorporate the fullness of that word. And to be sadak or sadaka is to be right, to be correct, to be accurate, to be acquitted, to be vindicated, to be verifiable, to be credible. All of those things are sadak. The reason that's important is that Yahweh routinely tells us that Dod, his chosen one, his beloved son, our Messiah and King and Savior, was sadak. And that means he was right about God. God's not looking for good. He's looking for right. And that's one of the great mistakes of religion, because faith is not about being right. Yeah, it's about believing. And if you are believing, it means you don't know. And if you don't know, you can't be right. You're just guessing with faith. So you need to choose to engage and act upon that which is right. Because my deliverance and resulting salvation are approaching, and they are close, imminent, and personal. All right, so this is being spoken in first person by this fellow named Yahweh. Interesting guy, creator God of the universe. We're very comfortable in our relationship. He's approachable, lovable. He is exceedingly kind, generous, brilliant. And he is telling us here that his deliverance, his vindication, and salvation are near. Now, we've gone just 8 years shy of 6,000 since humankind were booted from the garden. And God is saying that our final deliverance is near. So would you think that being 7 to 8 years away from God resolving all of this would qualify as that period where it's near?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he has now established all of this cerebrally. I want you to observe, which is what we're doing here with these prophecies and these translations. I want you to observe. I want you to exercise good judgment, which is our whole approach to everything. I want to make certain that you engage and act, and you do so on that which is right, which you can only determine if you are thoughtful and judgmental. It's the only way you can determine what's right. And when you do that, I want you to know that my salvation, my deliverance is near. And it has not happened at any other point over the past 6,000 years.
Yeah, there was no rapture. There was no rapture.
No rapture.
Yeah, well, yeah. Rapture is the thing that's gaining so much attention these days because Christians are desperate for it, and they know that there was this thing that Paul promised. Of course, Paul attributed it to trumpets, which would be Taruw'ah, because Shamu'el was already taken to create the myth of of the birth of their church. And so he didn't know that the next harvest is actually Shamu'el. And he didn't know that Taruw'ah is a gleaning and it only applies to Jews, and he's speaking to Gentiles. So that didn't work out very well for him either. And he told everybody that his rapture was going to occur during his lifetime. Mm-hmm. And since it didn't, he was only off by 2,000 years. He's a false prophet. So that, if you're a thoughtful Christian, you're not looking for a rapture, which means it's from a Greek word that means a violent tearing away.
Like a wolf.
Jesus.
Yeah, like a wolf ripping apart. And so if that's what you're looking for, you're not very smart, because Paul presented it as a false prophecy. He had the timing off by 2,000 years. He had the means of it. There's no ripping away, no wolves' teeth in this. So he had the nature of it, the timing of it, and the date of it in the sense of Taruw'ah versus Shabu'ah. He made it off by he was wrong about everything. So I wouldn't be hoping on your rapture. There is a harvest, and God says it's near. So now we need to put everything we're reading here, everything now in 56 and 57, has to be with the mindset that we are approaching 20 years, 40 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years to Dod's and Yahweh's return. And we know that time explicitly because God gave us the exact day that he would fulfill Chag Matzah in 33 CE, which is year 4000 Yah. So when you look at God's plan of the 6 + 1 = 7, it's real easy to go from, that's year 4000 Yah, it was 33 CE. It's exceedingly easy to determine that 2033 will be year 6000 Yah. So we know exactly when these things are going to transpire. All right. So he goes on to say, therefore, the Tzedakah Ani, which is the one who is correct about me and vindicates with me, will come to pursue the harvest, be included and return, then remain. Labo, so as to be revealed and to be made known. And you're witnessing the fulfillment of that prophecy. It's the first time in 2,500 years that somebody can speak honestly and forthrightly who is right about Yahweh. And so Yahweh says, therefore, this Tzedakah Ani, this one who is correct about me and vindicates with me, he's going to pursue these harvests, Shabu'ah, Taruw'ah. And he's going to be included, he's going to return, then he's going to remain, so as to be revealed and made known. There's a reason that God has, 1,000 prophecies about this fellow. He is now the Tzedakah Ani, the one who is right about me. Let me tell you, there must be 100 titles and presented on average about 10 times a piece. We're dealing with 1,000 prophecies about the person that God has chosen for this purpose. And he's saying, trust me here. As the time approaches, I'm going to deliver him. So there you go. So this is reminiscent, of course, of what Solomon advised and told the Israelites as he spoke to the people upon the completion of Yahweh's covenant home. And when he was announcing specifically that the Nakri, the observant foreigner, would arise. And that once he arrived, he would address God's wayward children during the last days. He was thereby encouraging Israel to be observant and responsive, acting upon what this individual, this witness, a Nakri here, a Nakar, and Isaiah would be sharing on their behalf. And we're going to get right to this, where God uses the term ha-nakar, that's the person he's talking about. It's a very important title. It first appears in the Torah in Devarim 29. It appears here in 2 Chronicles 6, and it appears throughout Yeshayah.
And Craig, we're talking also about the same individual who is known as Mikael.
Yes, we are. when it comes to this time and this prophecy, God had a couple of guys. He introduces them in the Torah in the first chapter as the greater and lesser luminary. He then reintroduces them in the second chapter as the tree of lives and the tree of knowledge. He then introduces them in Numbers as Eldod, and which is God's beloved, and Midod. And then he sent them as Gabriel and Michael, one who is right about God, and the most courageous and capable man of God, again, these same two guys, to speak to Daniel about the timing of these events and what was going to happen during these last days. So, yeah, it's just a consistent story all the way through. God wants you to know who he chose and equipped to speak for him, so that when he speaks for him, his people listen. Pretty simple concept. That was the one that Miriam tested, wasn't it? Yeah. We don't like that wife of yours, and oh, by the way, we also speak for God. And God says, no, you don't. No. When I choose somebody to speak for me, they know it and you know it, because I'm very clear about who I have chosen to speak for me. And he's very clear about what we're doing.
I know you're going to get into it, but Miriam is going to be manifested by that terrible term that we all are going to approach later, azab.
Yeah, she is clearly azab, but we won't get through it because we only have an hour left in this program tonight. But we will in future iterations of this, and we can get together and do it collectively.
Right.
But where this is leading, fellas, where this is leading is that there is somebody that God says is demonic and a whore. And he's assuring that they're going to be dispatched to Sheol, hell. So you want to be really careful about your reaction when we tell you this is what Yahweh said. And you may think, as I once did, that God could do a whole lot better. And that, it's presumptuous for somebody to say that you're speaking for God. But after, the 500th, 600th, 700th time you come across something where God says, oh, by the way, that's you. And you need to tell people that's you and we're doing and what the time is. And oh, by the way, with these 35 books we've written together, there is no one else. So buck up, Buttercup, because we got a lot to accomplish. And that's basically what we're going to read in these next those two chapters have to say. Yeah, buck up, Buttercup. There is a lot to be done here. Okay, so having studied the Torah and the prophets, and especially the writings, the Psalms and the Proverbs of Dode, the Nakri, this observant and responsible foreigner, sometimes called the Nakar, same exact term. It's whether it's being the influence of or just the title by itself with the Y after it or not. He's going to come. Everybody that reads the Torah and prophets knows that the Nakar is an exceedingly prolific character in God's story, and that he is a prophetic character for the last days. So this Nakri, which means observant and responsive foreigner, is going to know the Tzedak, the right way, via the Bereth covenant and the Mikre invitations, which Dode exemplified and fulfilled. He will be correct regarding the means of deliverance, of vindication, even of salvation, which occur as a result of what Father and Son have achieved. Listen, and you too can be part of Yahweh's family. Now, also revealing in this situation, both Shamar choose to be observant regarding exercising good judgment, and then Ashah want to act and engage, are both scribed in the imperative mood. So what does that mean, fellas?
Imperative, you got to do it.
Nope. Imperative actually doesn't mean you got to do it. It means you should choose to do it.
Yeah.
While the term in English would create the natural conclusion that an imperative is something you must do, it's when you actually study the purpose of an imperative mood, it is a second person expression of volition. It means you should choose to do this.
Again, free will.
So, yep, this means that Yahweh is soliciting our cooperation, offering guidance, which is subject to our own free will. With tzedakah scribed twice, God is encouraging us to be right about him so that we can be acquitted of our guilt. As we're going to get further into this in the 57th chapter, it is those who are tzedakah that are gathered in and taken to heaven with everyone else left behind. So tzedakah is the key. Tzedakah means it has nothing to do with belief, nothing to do with faith, nothing to do with religion. Tzedakah is to be right, which means you have to be observant and exercise good judgment to get there. So this is the only tzedakah correct approach to God. The second occurrence, tzedakah, is addressing someone who is demonstrably right about God and who, as a result, will be working with Yahweh to vindicate his people. And the conjugation that it was scribed in calls it a verbal noun, so it's an actionable description of an individual. Then, contemplating the full implications of Bo, we can get that derived from that he will come to pursue a harvest. He's going to be included in that harvest, and then he's going to return. He will remain thereafter. And all of this echoes what we learned back in Isaiah 17 about the Zeroah and the Parah. This one cultivating the harvest and the productive bowl, presented in Isaiah 17. The Katsir will arrive to pursue the Shabuah harvest, leaving with those who are withdrawn, only to return 3 years later. But come Taruw'ah, he's going to remain. Where do you think you're going? Therefore, Yahweh is putting his people on notice that they should be looking for this person, such that when he arrives, they will benefit from his contribution to their salvation. We have repeatedly announced that the realization that Dod is the Messiah, the Son of God, the returning king, the chosen one, who fulfilled Pesach Matzah B'Kudim in 33 CE, year 4000 Yah, as he himself narrated and foretold, that is the greatest discovery in human history. But there is so much more to this than determining how he came to know that he should do this, that he convinced Yahweh to allow him to endure it and even to trust him to do so. More to it than even knowing why it was in Dod's and Yahweh's interest, as well as our own, for all of this to play out that way. There's more to it than calculating the exact day Chag Matzah was fulfilled using Gabriel's prophecy, affirming that 33 CE was year 4000 Yah, thereby being able to precisely date Dod's return. And that is because I was able to ascertain how the spring Mikre were fulfilled using Dod's disposable Bashar body to open the door to life on Passover, and his eternal Nefesh soul to carry our guilt into Sheol on Matzah to assure our acquittal, so that we could be Tzedak, such that the Bokor, the firstborn son of Yahweh, enabled the benefits of Bokurim, firstborn children, the following day. I was even able to show how Dod's Mizmowr, Psalm 22, served as a first-person narrative of his crucifixion, thereby completely destroying the myth of Jesus while excoriating Judaism. And in this way became the living embodiment of, well, what we're reading here in Isaiah 56:1. And, I'm not trying to take any credit for this. I want to tell you that every time you see yourself written into the story, it's a greater burden. It's more responsibility. It's, oh my God, are you crazy, God? I mean, you really think that you picked the right guy and that we're going to get this done? And have you checked the atmosphere that we're in today? This is a pretty hostile world. Nobody wants to listen to you. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. You don't really intend to succeed this way, do you? And every time you read it, it's just cringeworthy for me. I'm not bragging here. I would love to shirk this responsibility, but it ain't going to happen.
Oh, Craig, saying, trust and rely. You're the Red Bull.
Yeah, it is clear that's the Red Bull, and I'm content with God's choice. I may not have not agreed that he made the right choice, but I'm going to accept the choice he made, and we're going to get this done. There will be no relenting. We'll see it through. But when you see yourself written like this, the point I want to get across is that it's not oh boy, isn't that exciting? There's another reference to me. No, it's exactly the opposite. Oh, could you tone it down a little bit? Well, hold on, easier here. You just tone it down a touch. I already got a target in my head. How big do you want it to be? Okay. Well, in this way, I certainly became the living embodiment of it, and I'm not going to run away from it. We made a decision a long time ago. We're going to go where the word's lead. And this is where it's lead. So, and
at least he's already assured you you're going to succeed. So
he has
for you.
Yeah, that's it's success. He's the measure of success. And so he is defining what we accomplish together, success. So, and he's obviously he's both really pleased with what we're accomplishing together, and he's really upset at those who are antagonistic towards it.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. For this is what Yahweh, and no one else prior to our engagement together would ever have read it that way, shared it that way. They would have always said, this is what the Lord. And that's not what it says. It says, this is what Yahweh. And if you don't know Yahweh's name, if you can't prove that that's how it was pronounced, if you don't understand the verb that it is based upon, then and what those letters convey, then you're not in a position to do this. And so it wasn't until somebody figured this out that you could even commence and fulfilling this objective. For this is what Yahweh says. You should choose to be observant, carefully considering and closely examining the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes, making good decisions. Then choose to engage, such that you act upon that which is correct and vindicating, because my deliverance and resulting salvation are approaching, and they are close, imminent, and personal. Therefore, the Tzedakah Ani, the one who is correct about me and vindicates with me, will come to pursue the harvest, be included and return, then remain, so as to be revealed and made known. Well, since there isn't another Goy or even a Yehud who's written and spoken testimony or even remotely comparable to YadaYahowah or the Yahweh blog, you know that the 25,000 pages of amplified translations and commentary and insights on Yahweh's testimony are more than 10 times greater than all of the prophets combined?
Believe it.
Now, just put that in perspective. 10 times greater than all of the prophets combined over 1,000 years. So it's a reasonable credential to toss in and say, okay, well, I think we've qualified on that point. And we've now done hundreds and hundreds of hours of this Yahweh vlog since Yahweh asked us to do it a year ago. So there is the evidence, the YadaYahowah and the Yahweh blog, and you are witnessing the fulfillment of this prophecy and so many others. Yahweh inspired Yeshayah, Isaiah to convey this promise so that you would know how to proceed, especially in a world that is filled with deceitful and deadly influencers. Also insightful. The first word that Dode wrote, and the first that I translated long ago, 24 years ago, was Asher. And it's presented here as Ashri. It says, blessed by the benefits of the relationship, joyous and productive by showing the proper way. Is this person a mortal man, an Enosh, who acts upon and as he engages in this with unfolding implications under time? Asha is oath. Because this son of man is a lone individual, and he will be exceptionally firm and resolute in this, empowered and strengthened to prevail, restoring through his conviction and resolve with regard to this. Dr. Jeff's favorite word. What would that be?
Chazak.
You got it. Chazak. I think you have to be Jewish to actually pronounce that CH correctly. But, one of the qualifications to follow in Moshe's footsteps is to have a speech impediment. So I get to mispronounce it. And being Jewish, my lovely wife who stepped out with Cara for a moment, she is very good at this. She's always chastising me. So you don't pronounce it correctly. I say, it sounds like you're trying to spit something up when you pronounce it correctly.
It's interesting, Craig. You mentioned from the beginning just from the name YAHOWAH, which is where many of us got our start. You go to the third statement, the one that's etched in stone the only one in the perfect tense. And again, I'll bring up that word. It's the one where if you don't get it right and you bring his name to nothingness, you are doomed to be forsaken. Again, Azab.
Yes. Unforgivable. Yeah, negating the value of Yahweh's name, which is what has been done in all three of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They have negated the value of Yahweh's name. In Israel today, no one will say Yahweh's name. The entire nation has negated Yahweh's name, and it's unforgivable. And you don't get a second chance at it. This cult that we call it a clique now that Yahweh will demean as we move forward in this. It's one of the very first things they did. They changed Yahweh's name to accommodate their absurdity that there was a mother God and that they were speaking for said mother God. So they changed Yahweh's name to accommodate their misconceptions. And that is unforgivable. Now, God did not say that was damnable. It was unforgivable. And damnable is a very different thing. Unforgivable means that at the end of your life, depending on other things that you've done, your soul will cease to exist. Damnable, azab, means that you're going to the place of separation, which is an eternity in Sheol, hell. They are different things. And negating the value or changing Yahweh's name to mislead, while it's unforgivable, doesn't necessarily mean that the result will be the cessation of your soul, the dissipation of your soul. Because I think most people who are aggressive in that posture will have committed enough religious malfeasance to have led enough people astray that their souls will go to Sheol as a result of it. But this is one of many references here to Shazak. God is not looking for humble. And we had, remember, a whole group of women and even an effeminate man who were all hung up over modesty and humility and meekness. And because those are religious concepts, and it feels good to people to be meek and humble. But that's not God's nature. He is absolutely, unequivocally not looking for someone who is meek or humble. He is looking for someone who is Shazak. And if you can't be Shazak, chances are you're not going to be part of the team going forward, working with them. That doesn't mean you can't be part of the covenant. It's just that you aren't going to be engaged in accomplishing anything meaningful. So God is saying a lot of things here that are very specific to the Tzedakah Ani, this one who is right about God, about Yahweh, and vindicates along with God, and that he is going to come, and that God's going to bring into the forefront so that people notice who he is and listen to him. It says that he is Asheri, and every time I see that in an important statement, my first response is, okay, that's quite an affirmation. I mean, when you've written 25,000 pages of translations and you see an important prophecy that begins with the first word you translated, it's reassuring. It may not mean anything to anybody else, but it certainly is reassuring to me, and the message of it is very compelling. So blessed by the benefits of the relationship and joyous and productive by showing the proper way. Is this person a mortal man? He is an Enosh. God's trying to make it clear to you that he is not going to do what Christians have claimed, become a man and somehow communicate as a man. He's saying, no, it's not going to happen. No, the Tzedakah Ani, the one who is right about Yahweh, is a man. He is flesh and blood. He is not God. He is not a supernatural spirit. He's a man. And for the past 6,000 years, when God's wanted to communicate with humans, he has picked a man through whom to communicate. It is how God operates. And this is no exception. So understand that God is telling you that the Tzedakah Ani, the one who is right about Yahweh, is a mortal man. And the thing that is unique about him is not only right about God and therefore vindicating, but that he also shows the way to receive the benefits of the relationship, which is what Asheri means.
You just put to death a fundamental Christian concept, if I'm correct, known as a theophany. There is no theophany.
No. Kevin, what were you going to say?
Well, and that's what was most striking to me earlier with this new translation of Tzedakah going through that, is he even goes and comes back, right?
Yes.
So
yes,
yeah, that's back to the two lives thing again. That there's only one other.
Yeah. Yes, actually, every covenant member will get 2 lives. There are 3 people in God's story that have 3 lives.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if any one of the people with 2 lives, you do not want to covet or be jealous because there are 3 fellows that have 3 lives, because the second of those 3 lives is pretty rough. Look what happened to Toad in that second of 3 lives. He was crucified, and then his soul went into Sheol, hell. Yeah.
I just want to ride on your boat. I don't want to boat myself. I just want to ride on your boat.
Yeah, nobody wants to be envious here. Yeah, they're talking about when we go forward here, there will be there are 3 fellows that will have earned a place at the table with the Yahweh underneath Dode, of course, but because they'll have skin in the game, quite literally. Eliah is the goat whose blood is sacrificed to anoint the mercy seat for this remnant of Yisrael on Kippurim as Dode returns. And Yada, he is the anima parah. He is that brutal sacrifice that takes place on Taruw'ah, and Dode, it was the Passover lamb. So there's the second of the 3 lives of these fellows are all pretty gruesome, but there are, in fact, 3 lives for each of those 3 individuals, and they're represented by a ram, Dode, a goat, an Eliah, and a bull, in Yada. And that story is pervasive all the way through the Torah and prophets. So blessed by the benefits of the relationship, joyous and productive by showing the way, is the person. This is a mortal man who acts and engages. That makes him unique. He's not just a wallflower. He's not just his goal in life was not to be an influencer. His goal in life was to be observant, to think, to be right, to learn, to share what he had learned, and to make a difference. He's very action oriented. My wife will accuse me of that all the time. I mean, it's always we're time's money. We're trying to get this done. Let's focus on the objective. Who acts and engages with unfolding implications over time. That means it was written in the imperfect mood. Imperfect conjugation, I should say. Because this Son of Man, Christians, Son of Man must be Jesus, because, Son of Man is used all the way through Ezekiel, and Jesus, he claimed to be the Son of Man. Yeah, there's only one problem. Jesus never existed. He is a myth created by Paul. Yeah. Son of Man just means, again, I'm trying to tell you that this fellow is a descendant of Adam, which means he's going to have a conscience. That's a good thing. But he's a descendant of Adam. Why? Because he's trying to rectify the issues of Adam so that when you're given the opportunity to go back into the garden, you can do better than Adam. Okay, so he is a descendant of Adam for the express purpose of pointing out what was wrong with Adam, so that when you are brought back into the garden, and we're all going to be working collaboratively at that time, we can help people be much better than Adam.
I can also point out this can't be Jesus, because the term used just before this was Enoch, which specifically speaks of a mortal man.
Correct.
Mortal man.
So
cannot be.
You can't have God be a mortal man.
No, you can't. But by the way, you can't have God be a man either.
Yeah.
I mean, not only is the term mortal and the antithesis of Jesus being a God, but let me just be really clear. There is a 0% possibility that God became a man. It's physically impossible, and it would be astonishingly demeaning. God works through man. He speaks through man. He is not a man. And you're Jewish there, Dr. Jeff. Are you responsible for killing God? Do you have a superpower that I don't know about?
I think not. If we were, I think we should be the ones who would be worshipped.
I would think so. If you had the superpower that you could kill God, then you should be the ones who are worshipped. But that was the line both in Acts and in Paul's letters that he accused Jews of killing the Christian God, and so they should be dehumanized. But the fact of the matter is, God can't die, and no man is ever going to kill God. All right. Anyway,
I think the amount of Yehudi blood that has been spilled as a result of that
lie. And of course, it was the Romans, which became the Roman Catholic Church, that did it. Both for the fake Jesus and for the real Messiah Dode. It was the Romans who became the Roman Catholic Church.
Blood spilled over a mythological myth.
Yeah. What'd you say there, JB?
I said, we can call you the person who killed Jesus, because you killed the myth of Jesus.
I did. I'm taking a lot of credit for that. I have killed the myth of Jesus, and I would do it again. I would do it again. So for Christians, if you're looking for somebody to accuse for killing Jesus, it wasn't the Jews. I'm a goy. It was me. I killed him. I killed Jesus. Absolutely, unequivocally. I'll take full responsibility for it and be very proud of it. I killed Jesus.
And then put
baby Jesus
in the coffin.
Baby Jesus, adult Jesus, mythical Jesus, gospel Jesus, all Jesuses I killed. Bottom line here, it's absolutely true. The 5 books of Twistianity, this is one of 5 volumes. I absolutely and unequivocally killed Jesus.
The ironic thing is that the Goyim who think otherwise should be thanking you.
Yeah, they should be. But the Goyim who believe in mythical Jesus should be thanking me for saving them from that lie, so they don't lose their soul to it. And Jews should be thanking me for accepting responsibility for what they've been blamed for, killing Jesus because I did it.
I did it.
Hey, but the good news is the only thanks that I was looking for was from Yahweh, and he is very appreciative. And Dode, oh my God, my king, he is ecstatic that I finally killed Jesus. So, I'm delighted. My wife has wanted to do it for a very, very long time, and so there are some people that are pleased with it, and I'm tickled myself to have.
Yahshua is moonwalking.
Yeah. And we're not, by the way, totally mocking this. The fact of the matter is it's absolutely true. It killed Jesus. The first person to ever do it, I proved conclusively that Jesus never existed, that he was nothing but a crude counterfeit of the actual Messiah, Son of God, chosen one, and Savior, Dode, which means that Paul made him up. And I even explained how Paul made him up in 52 CE. And the reason that Paul never quotes anything from him is because, well, he didn't exist. And the first gospel, which is the term that Paul conceived, the first two are written by Paul's accomplices, Mark and Luke, 10 years after Paul's death. So there was no gospel Jesus to quote, because gospel Jesus wouldn't exist for another 10 years after Paul's death, after Paul had already written the first 14 books of the Christian New Testament. That's how bad this whole lie is.
You know, Shabu thinks you're good too.
Yeah. Imagine this, though, that the person who invented Jesus, Paul, never once quoted him. He claims that he was chosen by Jesus for all mankind, and he never once quotes him. What do you think the odds are for that to be true? And their first alleged meeting, his said to Jesus, strikes him lame and blind.
Yeah,
That's some kind of God, huh?
Isn't that how he approached Moshe?
No. God's first say, hey, Moshe, come here and take off your shoes, get comfortable. This is a really important place. Then we're going to have a nice discussion. And Moshe and he had a nice discussion. And God says, I want you to go do this. And Moshe says, nope, not going back, not going to do that.
no.
And God kept on pushing him, and because he was the only person on the planet who was qualified to do that job. So God didn't have a backup plan. It was going to be Moshe. And so Moshe's final retort was, well, I've got a thick tongue. I'm like that Craig guy that doesn't speak very well, and you should do better than me. And God's retort to that was, hey, Moshe,
Who made your mouth?
I'm God. You might have heard of me. I'm
good.
God. I made your mouth. You think I can make it work? And what do you say to that? Yeah, you don't. I'm going to tell you that.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. It's a few times I tried to argue with God over something and say, yeah, I'm not so sure I understand why that is that way, or what are we going to do here? You are never going to win an argument with God, ever. Best not try. You can have fun with him. He'll pull your leg and he'll be sarcastic and have fun with you, but you just aren't going to win an argument. That's the whole issue where I said I read that and I said, God, can you back off a little bit? I mean, it's getting to be a little overwhelming here of all this responsibility and all of this attention. A little less of it might be more comfortable. But after a while, you say, okay, we've been doing this for 24 years. You've never steered me wrong at any of that time. And look where it's led us. I'm happy to continue along. Where do you want to go next? So this then says that because this son of man, the son of Adam, is a lone man, he will be exceedingly firm. He's going to be Chazak because I'm going all in with one guy. That's what God's telling you here. And because I'm going all in with one guy, you need to know that this one guy is going to be that one that I've described as the bull. Bulls are Shazak. You're never going to meet a bull that isn't Shazak. No, they don't make meek bulls. They don't make timid bulls. They don't make humble bulls. Bulls are bulls. And he's saying that this man is exceptionally firm, resolute, empowered, strengthened, restoring, has conviction, resolve. These are the traits. Now, those traits drive a lot of people crazy. Both insecure women in particular, but also insecure men, are just driven nuts by confidence because they don't have any, and they crave it. They're drawn to it, and then they're so uncomfortable in its presence that they will do everything to try to destroy the person that exhibits it. And they will always mislabel confidence cockiness, always. Yeah. And it's a great travesty of human nature to do that, because To speak for Yahweh, the currency of the person who speaks for Yahweh must be confidence.
There's another title there that just came to mind. Isn't there the rod of divine justice?
What
As well?
now?
Shabbat.
The divine rod of justice.
Yeah, there is. It's a part of the Choder concept, and it's presented elsewhere. That the Choder is a divine rod of justice. He has been given, delegated through Yahweh and through Dod, the responsibility of executing judgment. And I would be really careful with that. Well, I don't have to be careful with it because I'm committed to doing what God wants. I'm not going to vary from what God wants to do. I've modeled myself every ounce of my thinking in response to trying to be consistent with God's nature. So I'm not going to do anything that's outside of his nature. And I'm going to have the Malach to present all of the evidence. And by that time, the mind is going to work much better than it does today, even. And I'm going to have a copy of the Torah written inside of me. And I'm going to have all you guys there to help. And we're going to get this done. But there are some things you can do to God that would cause God to respond far more harshly than he would under other circumstances. And that is injure his people or demean his son. And in my case, you can demean my wife, and you can see how I respond to that.
Mhm.
And there's a group of people out there that are devoted to undermining me by demeaning my wife, just as Miriam did to Moshe. And I can tell you how Yahweh responded to Miriam, which was to strike her with leprosy, spit in her face, and exile her from the community, and then lecture her. I can tell you how I'm going to deal with the group that has decided to disparage my wife. And it's not going to be pretty. I'm not going to forgive or forget or overlook. He did something that was horrible, despicable. So it continues. By closely examining, there's that word again, shamar, and carefully considering the Shabbat as the promise of 7. Thereby avoiding defiling and profaning it by making it common, he is being observant and careful, attentive and aware. Starts with Shamar, ends with Shamar, and has Shabbat and Chalal in the middle of it. This is one of the very significant departures of what we have learned and have been consistent with this from the very beginning. And that is that the Shabbat is not do nothing day. That the religious are wrong by making Shabbat a day that there are 10,000 things that you cannot do. And what religious Jews have done in Judaism is make the Shabbat common among Jews because they made it religious, which is the most common theme among Jews. That's what God says, don't do that. To shamar is a verb, is it not?
Yep.
Are verbs actionable?
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
true.
Verbs.
That is why they're verbs, isn't it? There, see, we have Rich knows.
Yeah, Rick, it's something.
Yeah, Rich is something that they're verbs. In fact, there are 3 verbs in this sentence, and a word Shabbat, which also is a verb. So it's really verb. And the doubled verb shamar is very actionable. Shamar means to closely examine and carefully consider. And it was written twice. That's actionable, isn't it? So if you were to use the Shabbat to closely examine and carefully consider Yahweh's testimony so that you understand it better and you could share it, would that be a violation of the Shabbat or a proper use of the Shabbat?
I think it'd be the proper.
That's a proper use.
We're all agree.
Yeah.
with it.
So when I work 7 days a week at this, and I will tomorrow, I'm going to make more progress on translating and understanding. And I've done that now for well over a decade. That's not a violation of the Shabbat. That's a proper use of the Shabbat. And one of the reasons we know that the Shabbat is actionable is because God would be a hypocrite if he told us to do one thing and he did another. Wouldn't that be true?
Yeah, you always do. But
Okay. So
F-word.
the single most important day thus far in human history would be what day?
Matzah.
Matzah,
33
absolutely. Fulfillment of Matzah in 33 CE by Dode, when Yahweh loaded the guilt of every covenant member on Dode's soul and dispatched Dode with his Ruach spirit into Sheol to deposit our guilt in what is equivalent to a black hole, never to be seen again, so that we would appear innocent in God's view, tzedakah, vindicated and acquitted. What day of the week was that?
Shabbat.
It was on a Shabbat, wasn't it? Okay, there's two upcoming harvests and 2 days that we could potentially experience the full ramifications of Shabuah. And May 22nd is one of them, 2026. What day of the week is that?
Shabbat.
Okay, and the 11th of June and in 2027, which is the other potential for fulfillment of Shabuah. What day of the week is that?
It's a Shabbat.
Yeah.
Who's going to be doing the harvesting?
The Katsira.
On the earth it's the Katsir, and in Shamu'el it's Yahweh, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Correct.
So I would think that harvesting would be considered work, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Harvesting is work. Okay, so we got that part.
Harvesting
We got that part down too. And it's Yahweh who is harvesting on Shabuah, and that's a
So he's
Shabbat.
working.
So he's engaged, isn't he? Now, why can't rabbis think this through? Now, Taruw'ah, which is the Day of Days, the greatest show on earth. I mean, everything that can possibly happen happens on Taruw'ah. The earth is going to be terraformed back in the conditions of Eden. All traces of religion or politics are gone. All potential candidates to benefit from the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah are brought into Jerusalem from around the world. God's going to ignite the fires, release the waters, and have Eliah orchestrate the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. All of these things are going to happen. So he purges his people of the religiosity. All of these happen on the 22nd and 23rd of September of 2033. Does anybody have a calendar handy? What day of the week is Taruw'ah in 2033 or 6,000 years?
Be on a Shabbat.
It would be a Shabbat. Oh, yeah. So that's going to be the single most active day of all days in all of history for Yahweh, when he's going to do more than he will do on any other day and all of time. And it is a
Shabbat.
Shabbat.
okay. And then we're allowed back into the garden, where all of this gives us the opportunity to get it right and to prove that we're worthy of God's attention. That's going to be on the 7th of October of 2033 to the backdrop of a full lunar eclipse. What day is October 7th of 2033?
The
Take a
Shabbat.
guess.
It's a Shabbat.
Shabbat again. So do you think God's violating the Shabbat?
No, sir.
No.
The rabbis don't have a tzitzit to stand on, and they don't shema, and they don't shamar. They don't do either.
They don't know schmuck. Okay. So, yeah, they are schmucks. Okay, by closely examining and carefully considering the Shabbat as the promise of 7. Now, what this means is that there are 3 concepts that are conveyed by Shabbat. 7, the 7th day of the week, 7. And there's 7 epochs of life from the garden and finally to our release to the universe. It plays off over 7,000 years. 6 plus 1 equals 7. 6,000 years, the number of man, plus 1,000 years in God's company during the celebration of Sukkah, ends up at the 8th octave, where we get to go explore the universe. That would be 7. So we're approaching that time, are we not? And so we have an understanding of it. And how many Moed Mikri are there to get us there?
7.
7. That's 7 of those. And how many Ruach spirits of Yahweh does the Choder have?
7.
7.
Okay. Now we got a theme going here. So
Don't forget the menorah.
How about the candle? Yeah, how about the menorah? There you go, right on, Kirk.
Yeah. So God has a plan that plays out over 7,000 years with 7 Moed Mikri. And he's communicated now with a man through whom he has enabled with the 7 spirits of Yahweh. And we're right in the midst of that, and God says right at the time he's going to deliver salvation. So that's another part of it. And Shabbat also means one other thing in Hebrew. It's not only the seventh day and 7 and the Shabbat, that day of the week, but it means one other thing. What is that?
Promise.
Promise. That's correct. So he's closely examining and carefully considering the promise. He is closely examining and carefully consider this plan of 7, the meaning, the preponderance of 7. And he's working, doing what Yahweh wants done, engaging, which was the last verb, by being observant on the Shabbat. So that's why we look at it that way. And then the next verb that follows, men, chalal hu. It isn't chalal being negated. It's being distanced from. Men would mean apart from, distance from, as opposed to lo, which would create a negation of the verb. And in this case, what he is doing is avoiding making it profane. Profane means to be common. What's the most common thing among men and has been for 6,000 years?
Religion.
Right. So he's not treating the Shabbat like a religious occasion, is he? Man, interesting thoughts that God is conveying here. Then it goes on. So his hands, it's hand singular in the Masoretic, hands plural in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and especially that which he influences, will be kept from acting upon or engaging in anything unjust, immoral, or irrational, troubling, or distressful. Kol ra. Oh, that's a big deal. That means that this fellow who's supposed to be the tree of knowledge of good and bad himself is not going to engage in anything that would be considered unjust, immoral, irrational, troublesome, or distressful. Now, since the best example of a human of all time, according to God, is Dode. And Dode had, 8 wives and 10 concubines? God's not talking about immorality here as fornication, is he?
No.
No. And Dode did some things that would be really inappropriate. He had his general, didn't have him killed, but he sent him out on a mission where it was likely that he would die because he coveted his wife. And he sent some people on a very reckless mission because he longed for the taste of the water from Bethlehem. God gave him 3 choices of options, and he chose the worst of the 3 at one occasion. So Dode made some inappropriate decisions. So God can't be talking about making mistakes here, could he?
How does
He'll never make a mistake, and he will never do anything that's society might do.
Mm-hmm.
No,
and just how does one come up with 200 foreskins for a wife? I mean, that's not exactly something that I would think of as good, right? How does a guy come up with 200 foreskins for a wife, right?
Yeah,
there was lots of killing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's lots of killing. Yeah, it's lots of killing. So what God is talking about is the big picture. What's the big picture? What would God view as the single most unjust, immoral, and irrational, troubling, and distressful thing we can do?
Be wrong. Ra'ah.
Yeah. Well, not just be wrong, but be religious.
Be religious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If we're individually wrong, that's not that big a deal. If we are wrong because we make a mistake, because we didn't understand all of the evidence, and we go back later and we learn more, and we correct our mistake, that's a sign of that God's looking for. That's a sign that we can be trusted. We're honorable, we have integrity, and we can be trusted when you go through that. Evil from God's point of view, immoral, irrational, distressful, is promoting religion. Negating the value of Yahweh's name, negating the contributions that were made by his son Dode, promoting false gods, the militaristic nature of politics, being patriotic and therefore looking at your nation as superior so that you can influence and impose yourself on other people. That would be unjust. What the colonists did when they came to the Americas and essentially wiped out the native populations. That was unjust. So there's a lot of things you can do that are unjust, but what God's saying is that I'm going to keep this man from doing anything that would be considered raw, evil, religious, misleading regarding me. And he has. So Asher reveals that not only that this man will be blessed by God, and that's a nice thing, but also that he will be acclaimed for revealing the proper way to receive the benefits of the relationship. First person ever to render Asher in that manner. Then with Enosh, we know that Yahweh is working with and through a mortal man. That is his preference. The individual's notoriety is a function of his willingness to Ashah. So this is an active individual. He engages. He acts upon what God wants accomplished. That was the thing that distinguished Noah, was it not? He listened to God and then did what God asked him to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Listen and do. And he has, this particular fellow has a tremendous capacity to shamar. He closely examines and carefully considers everything Yahweh has revealed. God and man will be collaborating in this way at this time for this purpose, which is to deliver salvation to those who are also desirous of being right. So we're reminded that God's preference, which is to work with him and through men, this individual presented is yet again shown to be masculine, Enosh, and singular, which would be the son of Adam. And the verb shazak was scribed masculine singular. And regarding him, Yahweh reveals that he is shazak. He's got manly man characteristics from God's point of view. God likes manly man characteristics. You know, there are women who are resolute, and that's great, but it's a more masculine prone verb than it would be typically feminine. And so shazak would mean resolute, uncompromising, firm, to the point of being harsh at times even. He is unyielding and tough. He's a man of conviction and resolve. He can't be in politics because he is not compromising. God doesn't want him to compromise. And as a result, working with Yahweh, this mortal man will prevail in the mission of restoring God's people. Yahweh has designated Yada as a par, as a bull. And that's largely because he must be shazak. He's got to be bullish to succeed. This tough damn job is a hard audience. And there is no backup plan for this. As we've said, you know, God's got all in on this. So that's Yahweh's position. And as is the case with Ha-Nakri, the observant foreigner, this son of man will shamar. He will survey and contemplate all that Yahweh has to offer, and his approach to the Shabbat and to God's promise of 7 will be to remain particularly attentive and aware so that it is never defiled by becoming ordinary and common and thus religious. For him, the Shabbat will be the ultimate opportunity to shamar, to explore and examine Yahweh's testimony. It's the day we do that. We are excited to be able to do that. By being observant and resolute, right and engaged, this Enosh ben Adam will deliver Tob, good rather than raw, bad fruit. Yahweh, based upon his commitment to all of the above, says that he will be unique among men because his every influence is going to be appropriate, moral, rational, all the time completely avoiding anything that is viewed as counterproductive or troubling, distressful. Now, I have spoken of fruit here, not only because the Etz Dayath and the garden offered knowledge of Tob, good, and Ra, bad, and that the Choder of Yeshayah 11 represents this tree, but because Yahweh will soon designate this man as an Etz tree. As we move through this testimony, God tells this rebellious clique of what he is now referring to as demonic women, whores. He says that your problem is that you've been barking up, and he does use the term barking. You're barking up the wrong tree. And he's specific about the tree. So they have been barking up the wrong tree. And he is thereby tying Genesis second chapter of Genesis together with Isaiah 11, and now here, Isaiah 56. So up to this point, it has been obvious that Yahweh has been addressing his Nakar, his observant foreigner. He is the one through whom God restores his Shem name, Bakor, firstborn son, Torah, guidance and teaching, and Berith, covenant family. Through his Moedim, his restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony. Once his Yahushua, deliverance and salvation are near. Do not say, this is, I just pause here because sometimes when you see things, you just take a deep breath and say, yeah, God really did say that, didn't he? Do not say regarding Hanakar, the observant son of a foreign land, the one who knows and understands through thoughtful examination, and then acknowledges by being discerning and respectful. Do not say regarding Hanakar, who has formed a relationship with and is joined to Yahweh, something which would infer Yahweh will surely abandon me, preventing me from being included as part of his family. And do not let the Sharis, oh, this is another one that just pierces the gut. This esteemed and authorized official designee say, what then if I become a withered and unproductive tree, an incapacitated counselor, or paralyzed messenger? I read this and it's all I can do to keep the bull from crying. Yahweh, he has delivered his Nakar, somebody that gets vastly, overwhelmingly more prophetic ink than the Mashiach. Overwhelmingly so. Not even close. Why is everybody looking for a returning Messiah when God speaks over and over again about his presentation and the arrival of a Nakar? That's a good question, right?
Yeah.
It's all over the place. Nakar this, Nakar that. Here it is again.
Ha Nakri, Ha Nakar. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, everywhere.
Shoda.
So Yahweh has delivered his Nakar, observant foreigner, to correct his people's propensity to be religious and wrong, thereby reconcile the relationship. This title is first presented in the Torah when his purpose is proclaimed in Devarim 29. That one's a full chapter devoted to him. And in the Torah, he is also acknowledged in 2 Chronicles 6, which is one of the most powerful prophecies ever issued. In this case, Ha Nakar, the observant foreigner, is distinguished by his Lawah. Doesn't get better than that. What God is saying with Lawah is that his Nakar is engaged in a close and personal, enduring, unbreakable relationship with him, with Yahweh. I think if I were to pick somebody to fight with, that would not be my first choice. When God says, this guy's got a personal and close, unbreakable relationship with me, I say, yeah, okay, let's not fight over this. That's okay. That's pretty good. Yahweh and Ha Nakar, they're united in purpose and in spirit, so much so that God has given Ha Nakar his 7 Ruach spirits, including the very spirit of Yahweh. Read it in Yeshaya 11. His 7 Ruach spirits, including the spirit of Yahweh, are afforded to the Choder, and he is also given the Ruach of Chakma, intelligence, Bina, understanding, Etzah, comprehensive counsel on the entire story is part of that tree of knowledge. Gabora, courage, conviction. And Yara, respect for Yahweh. Hanakar, as the son of a foreign land, was chosen for this mission because when God witnessed the ongoing defiance of his people, not only throughout the Exodus, including that final meltdown at Meribah, he surmised the inevitable. The rebellion would continue such that there wouldn't be a Yehud who would listen and respond to him. And therefore, the prophecies regarding Ha-Nakar and Ha-Nakri are prolific. And they are all directed towards these harvests and the restoration of God's relationship with his people. And this means that Yahweh knew this tzedakah, one who is correct about him, as an Enosh, as a mortal man, and a Ben Adam, descendant of Adam, would arrive as Ha-Nakar, the observant foreigner, in advance of his deliverance and salvation. And he would form an enduring relationship with him. And he spoke of this over 3 millennia before it was tangibly manifest in space-time. That's pretty freaky. I want to tell you something. When you read something like that, and that God told this story 3,500 years ago, or in the case of speaking through Yashayah 2,700 years ago, it makes you pay attention. Describing him further, God says that he is a Seres. He is esteemed. He's authorized. He's the one officially designated by Yahweh. But even more than this, we discover that his foes wish to sharish, castrate him. Yeah, the word means to castrate. What is the animal that men castrate?
Bulls.
Bulls. They become oxen.
Castrated bull is an ox, isn't it?
Yep.
They castrate bulls, making them oxes so they can control them. What is the designation that Yahweh has given for this role?
Parah.
Bull, parah.
Oh,
Yeah, parah. Bokor. That, I tell you what, that'll get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're trying to keep a bull from being productive, which is what parar means. It's a productive bull. And you want to control him, you castrate him. So as a result of his collaboration with Yahweh, Yehudim are asked to forego their defiance. God is returning, and he wants to restore his relationship with his people. Before that occurs, reconciliation is at hand. Simply stop being rebellious, and nothing will prevent the Israelites from being included within the covenant family. This is the mission of Ha-Nakar. It's the purpose of YadaYahowah and the Yahweh vlog, all presented at YadaYah.com. So with everything writing literally on this one relationship, including the viability of the covenant, the continued existence of life on this planet, Yahweh has a message for Ha-Nakar, the observant foreigner. God's official designee must not ask, must not even consider, what then if I become a withered and unproductive etz tree? An incapacitated counselor, a paralyzed messenger. What happens then? What happens if I take the time off? What happens if I give up? What happens if I have a Moshe moment and tell God I can't do this anymore?
Game over.
There's no time for anyone to second guess this, for doubt, for a reprieve, to cease even being productive on the Shabbat. There is no time for a Moshe outburst. God, kill me, I can't do this. The people you want me to communicate to are way too embittered and impossible. And clearly Moshe buckled under the pressure of constant embitterment and ridicule, which is what I face every day. Some might call it coincidence, but I would not have identified with the Etz tree or understood the consequences of it yabesh, of it withering and drying up as unproductive, had it not been for the relentless slander of the mother goddesses and their clique. And because that has been those who have sought to castrate Yahweh's bull. But as a result of their opposition to Ha-Nakar, they're calling this a Apis, the bull cult now. God directed my attention to his response in Miriam's rebellion in Numbers 12, a year ago at this time. Then to Michel's meltdown in 2 Samuel 6, which they also seek to demean by citing a variation of the presentation from Chronicles, written 300-400 years later. And of course, then to Taruw'ah in Genesis 2, which we have presented as a model for this rebellious woman. As this individual twisted Yahweh's testimony to become a goddess. Taruw'ah did, and which is the purpose of that cult. It was then that I discovered that the Etz Da'ath, tree of knowledge in the garden, and the Choder's receipt of the spirit of Etzah, pursuant to Da'ath, in Isaiah 11, in the description of the seven spirits of Yahweh, there's no denying they're one and the same. And from this perspective, and only this vantage point, that is the only way this prophecy can be understood. When God said, this individual does not have the luxury to ever wonder what would happen if his productivity as a tree dries up, as the tree of knowledge. You don't get that luxury. Not that it's a luxury, but you can't do that. Don't look for a respite. Don't look for time off. Don't look for an alternative. Don't say, God, it's more than I can do. You need somebody else. No, he says, I'm going to give you the team that you need around you to get this done. You get it done. I'll give you the health to get it done. You get it done. No options here. That's really humbling when you read that. I mean, I don't mean to say humbling in that sense, because God wants Gabor. He wants us to be firm and resolute, but that's a deep breath kind of moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we must continue to be productive. So God provided this advice for his people and for this day. How you respond now is up to you. In a world rife with international and irrational and immoral thought police, muddled in conspiracy theories, while greatly outnumbered, our message will not be drowned out by the many complainers and critics, or muted too soon by the resolutely political. Fortunately, God is not going to allow his witness to be drowned out or suppressed. Together with the family Yahweh has provided to buttress and enable his Nakar, at this time we're going to prevail. As JB, you said very early in the process, God's already written the final answer.
Mm-hmm.
We achieve what he wants accomplished, but we do so because we're relentless.
Never give up.
And even in the face of unrelenting censorship, which we have all the way through social media, seeking to debilitate our efforts and reach and silence God's voice, as a result of this Yahowah vlog collaboration, something we live stream every week, sometimes twice a day, we can celebrate God's assessment. To the contrary, this is what Yahweh says on behalf of the Sharis, this esteemed and authorized official designee, who have been subject to castration and as a result of the positions they have taken as leaders. But they will provide guidance regarding the benefits of the relationship by being consistently observant and actively attentive, while actually exploring and investigating my 7 Shabbat promises. So they have chosen, preferring at this time, my will and my appreciation by revealing the correct path to the benefits of the relationship. Therefore, they are positioned to be overpowering and intense, uncompromising and firm, unrelenting and effective. Shazak, with my covenant, with my family, firm, resolute with my family. You know, it's interesting that Yahweh in Yirmay'ah 31, he's talking about the reaffirmation of his covenant. And he says that's going to take place between Yisrael and Yehudim, right? And then he goes on to say there's going to be a difference between the way that I treated the covenant during the Exodus from Mitzrayim, and the way that I will respond upon my return when I write a copy of my Torah inside of my people. And he says the difference is that during the Exodus, I took them kicking and screaming with a firm hand. God says that he operated in a shazak manner. And the reason is because they didn't know him. They didn't like him. And God had a job to do. He had to get them to the promised land, and didn't matter what they wanted. At this point, free will was less important than accomplishing the mission. He had to be resolute with them. And God said, I'm not going to do that this time. So he picked somebody that would. Still the only approach that works. And he says, you know, there will be those of you who capitalize on Shabu and Taruwah and are harvested, and those of you who do, you will have done so by choice and intellect. You're not going to be brought in cooking and screaming. But those who are finally purged on Taruwah, you know, God's going to pick them up and from around the world and bring them into Jerusalem. They're going to know as much about God as the children of Israel did during the Exodus, which is nothing. And so the only way to deal with them is to be firm. And so when we start with this remnant, God's expecting us to be as he was. So he doesn't have to go through this again. Now it's our responsibility to be firm with them, to be unrelenting. We have to have the courage to say that the rabbis are wrong. And Israel, if you continue to esteem your rabbis and be influenced by Judaism, you will never meet Yahweh. If you value Hanukkah, you're done. If you think it's appropriate to have a 9-candle menorah, then you're no different than those that built the golden calf.
Craig, you're the antidote, again, the reversal agent for rabbinical Judaism.
Yeah, I am.
And might I say, as we're on the cusp, and we're going full circle here back to Chazak and Gabor, and as we're into this new Gregorian year and on the cusp and the birth pangs of the Etz Sarah, look at what our fellow Yehudim are dealing with in New York. Wake up call.
Oh, I saw that so many times today as he put on the sweatshirt "Free Palestine," and he was pontificating Marxist slogans about the collective. Mm-hmm. And you know, my first response was to say that one of the lines that I've used many, many times. I authored this thought that men and women have the capacity individually to be good or bad, right, but collectively, men are always bad. And that is the nature of communism and socialism and why it always fails. It brings out, the collective always brings out the worst in men. And the next thing I had to say is that he swore in on a Quran. The Quran is the worst book ever written. It's murderous. It's demented. Allah is modeled after Satan. It values killing. There isn't a single redeeming statement in it. It's horrid. And that's what he swore to. And so this is not a problem because he is a Muslim Marxist. Worst of both worlds. It is because a majority of New Yorkers voted for him.
Right.
That they are so out of touch with reality. And let's be clear. He was elected because of women and immature people under the age of 35 that aren't thinking. So we have a generation of unthinking people under 30 in the United States who are just completely lost, and women who are. You look at the results of who voted for him. Without women voting for him, he's not elected. And so you just have to say, what's wrong? What's wrong with women? Why would you do such a terrible thing? This is it's a great travesty, and to have a man that's that anti-Semitic and who is a Marxist and a Muslim over the state of New York after 9/11, and you elect a Muslim. I mean, it just says that you have no capacity to reason. That's why this world has to come to a conclusion now. If we waited another generation, it'd be impossible. There'd be no one to reason with. If it were not for the gray and our chins here, Kirk and Kevin, Rich, you've got more than your share too. I'm sorry, but that's the audience is growing old. And while there will be some younger people that will be brought in as babes on Taruw'ah, those harvested are going to be mature. Which is the younger people don't think anymore. They're incapable of being judgmental. They're too lazy to actually engage in work. They feel entitled. So that's kind of where we are. Now, we only got to YAHOWAH 56:4. I would hope that you would mind that we get together on Sunday. You're not being radiated, Captain Kirk, and I don't know what your guys' schedule is, but I've gone in kind of a habit here where I'm taking the Shabbat. I still work 14 hours a day, 14 hours on the Shabbat, but my work is focused on translating and thinking and writing and doing that sort of thing. But on Sunday, I'd love to be able to do 2 programs. One would be another vlog on the blog. We did one last Sunday. And the second would be a second edition of this where we just jump right into it. We don't have the long discussion on the website and Hebrew, the Hebrew language and the beauty of the Hebrew language and fonts to convey it and all that sort of thing at the beginning of the program. But I'm going to tell you where this leads through Isaiah 56 and then into 57 is among the most riveting, appropriate, pertinent prophecies ever issued, and one that is instrumental for us today. Tells us exactly where we stand with Yahweh and where you need to stand if you want to join us with Yahweh, and who you ought to avoid like the plague. It's, as I said,
Blew me away.
Where it leads in the in 57, after it tells us about the disappearance during the harvest, is so specific to one group of people that God says that she is a sorceress. He says she's demonic. And it says she is a whore. And that she has a man that works with her who is completely unreliable. And that collectively, because of what they have done, that he's going to send them to Sheol. I've never seen anything that specific ever. And it's the longest single rebuke found anywhere in the Torah and prophets. The longest single rebuke. is devoted to this cast of characters, and I'm sitting here saying, why? I mean, they have all the value of navel lent. I mean, they're nobodies. They don't have a single intelligent thought between them. I mean, all they've got is hashtagging my name to try to parlay off for all the things we've done over the last 24 years. That's all they do is hashtag my name and YadaYahowah to draw attention to themselves to malign both. That's all they got. And why would God be so vitriolic towards them, where it's the single longest condemnation found anywhere in the Torah and prophets? Well, we're going to explore that. Find out why God decided he was going to do this, and why he directed our attention to it, why it's important for you to know, and where we go from here as a result of it. But I thought it was really interesting, since Zona is the term that Yahweh used for whore, and that she's called Anan, which is a sorceress, a demonic woman, that without even knowing I was going here, Leah produced her song last week that's entitled after this whore. And God's not using the term whore as somebody that is pandering themselves for sex, but it's the attitude that of a whore that he is describing. And where do you even find that something that I've never seen anywhere? God, for the most part, in the Hebrew language, is very masculine oriented. 80% of what we read, maybe 90% is written masculine with its pronouns. Mm-hmm. This whole narrative is written feminine singular. And nothing like it anywhere. And so you're gonna really have your eyes opened as to what God says. Don't you dare do with that at this time. I'm all in here. This is what we're going to do to prevail. And if you want to work against it, you are in real serious trouble. So just as he was protective of Dowd and should be, just as I am protective of Dowd and should be, just as we are protective of our Messiah and King, as is right to be, God is also protective of what we're doing.
Craig, you're the MVP, the most valuable parah, and you don't mess with you don't mess with Yah's code.
Very clever.
To be the MVP, the most valuable parah, there's only one of them. I always used to tell Asher she's my favorite dog. I tell Leah all the time she's my favorite wife. Yeah. So yeah, I am Yahweh's favorite bull. That is true.
It just don't, at this point in time, you just can't get in the way of his voice. You just don't do that.
Yeah, don't get in the way. It's you don't have to agree. You can oppose this all you want, so long as you don't get in the way. You want to continue to be religious, that's your choice. It's a very bad choice. It's going to end up very poorly for you, but you can do that. You can continue to be political. You continue to be conspiratorial, whatever you want to be, you can continue to be. That is your choice. You will endure your consequences. But if you choose to get in the way of this message and speak against what God's trying to achieve at this time when he's all in and everything is dependent upon it with his people, it's not going to work out well. And he actually says that there's 1,000 of the remnant who are at risk because of this.
Well, that's the danger.
Nope.
That's the danger.
Yep. You may have to have your box, and we may have to have a reveal on your box too, because there's also a reference to what's in it. Jeff.
Oh boy. Well, it's ready. It's there. It's
a little surprise for people potentially, because that was somebody that really went completely off the rails.
Yes.
And somebody that I don't even know, but a couple of you here do know, and not a pretty picture. But anyway, it's an interesting story that he would bring that up, but he did. God doesn't miss a trick. God doesn't miss a trick. All right. Well, it is
Sunday.
Sunday, if we could.
Sunday. Okay.
Yeah, it'd be my preference on Sunday.
I would think we could do the vlog on the blog early, since I'm the furthest east. and that way
Yeah,
it
okay.
gives Kirk's not up like at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning trying to get ready for a show for us.
Yeah,
You
there we
know?
go. I love
Do
it.
what y'all
We'll
need to
do-
do. I'll be up.
We'll do the vlog on the vlog early on Sunday, and which is just a favorite for me. I just love that format. And then we'll do a continuation of this and a return to the garden and what its implications are in Yeshaya 56:4. It gives everybody a chance to ponder it more and have questions and insights and contributions to it as we move forward. So we'll plan to do this on Sunday afternoon. Thank you, everyone. May Yahweh bless you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful rest of your Shabbat. Good day.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, Richie Rich, man. Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Rich.
Shabbat
Thank
shalom,
you,
everyone.
JB.